ZoomerLife. Health, wellness, and longevity from the world's brightest minds.
The Grim Reapers. We're going to discuss those diseases which sooner or later take away the bulk of the population, and in, I think, the proper order of their efficiency at killing us, they are cancer, heart disease, and coming up rapidly from the rear, as it were, in this terrible horse race are diabetes, Alzheimer's, and all the other things which debilitate us as our years wear on. And the first speaker, Denny Depetrillo, is someone I've known for a number of years because he was quite instrumental in my sister Libby's own episodes with cancer. I may speak a little bit more about that later on, but the thing about Denny that amazes me is that for a man who works in the sad corridors of the kind of iconic disease that has become the modern synonym for dread, the big C, the diagnosis that we all fear. The remarkable thing about Denny is I've never seen him without a smile on his face. This is Denny Depetrillo.
Thank you, everybody. Before I start, I have a disclaimer, is that I've had a cold and a flu for the last 5 days. I've been on all kinds of medication, so I have no idea of if I'm really going to say anything intelligent. So bear with me. And what we're trying to do today is my reflections of 40 years in the cancer world. And I got into it by serendipity, like anything else gets into anybody. I was a resident in obstetrics and gynecology. My father had come from Italy when he was 17, and was a barber. My mother was a seamstress in Spadina Avenue, working the sweatshops there. And they provided, like many immigrants then, the safe, secure, and education that we really appreciate. So I went into obstetrics and gynecology because I loved obstetrics. And in my last year, I had to do a year of surgery. And I'd already signed on a contract with the old Queensway Hospital with Frank Jardine, who's a beloved Italian obstetrician gynecologist, to be an obstetrician gynecologist in the community. And then I had to do a year of surgery. So I thought, well, let's do it in California. So I wrote to the Royal College and said, do they have any training programs in California that's acceptable? So I wrote to 20 of them, and finally I heard from the chief of surgery at a city called San Bernardino, California. So there I was with my atlas trying to figure out where San Bernardino was, and I found that it's about 40 miles east of LA on the way to Vegas. Hey, that's a great year. We'd do that, go down there. So I went down there, and it changed my whole life. Because what I didn't know was the home of the Hells Angels, and then the Chicanos that were there were in conflict with the Hells Angels. So for a year, we were operating day and night on critically ill patients. And when I finished, I could not go into clinical obstetrics and gynecology, but returned to California in 1972, which is 40 years, and started a 2-year program in gynecologic cancer, which is mainly surgery. So this is my son's 40th birthday today. He was born 40 years ago in California, and the start of our journey. So what I hope to do in the next few minutes, really, is just take you through a whirlwind on my reflections and what I think the cancer world has come to. Some positive and some negative, and for the most part, a very positive experience. So we're going to look back to look ahead, and this is a quote from Winston Churchill to do so. Now, what is cancer? Cancer is a disease like anything else. It does cause illness, but it's different than any other diseases. And it's different because it affects us and the families in a different way. Now, give me a show of hands of the people who have been affected either directly or indirectly by a cancer patient, either family members. Look, 75 to 80% of us have had the experience of cancer almost firsthand. And unfortunately, we've developed a very negative attitude about the outcome of cancer. So if you think of an infection, excuse me, and you go in to see your doctor and he says, you have an infection, nobody's going to say, thank you, doctor, and leave. You'd say, well, what kind of infection? Is it mild? Is it moderate? Can I treat it? What am I going to do? And everything else. When we tell somebody they have a cancer, they say nothing after that. Because what they're thinking of is their imminent death, which could be, they don't have no idea. So it's the unknown that really frightens people, it's not the known. So as part of the armamentarium of what we try to do, we try to give them the right information so that they can make the right decision aided by us. It's a chronic illness like anything else, like diabetes and heart disease, and thought of by some of the medical profession, but it's hard to convince a family member it's a chronic illness because it really affects everybody in a different way. You don't want it to go it alone. The patient with cancer, and I'll mention she because I just do gynecologic cancer treatment, has to be surrounded with friends, families, nurses, and physicians. Now, that can be good or bad because I just read Moses' article in the current Zoomer about physician-assisted suicide. It's a wonderful article. You have to read it because the patient has to be empowered to make a decision. And who's the best person to empower a patient to make a decision? The family may not be the best because they bring their own pluses and minuses to the table. They bring guilt to the table. We haven't done enough for grandmother or mother, the physicians have to keep her alive no matter what. The physicians are interested in investigational therapy. So they may bring their own biases to the table on what they're trying to do. Friends are really good, but they don't know what to say unless the member who has the disease, the patient, engages them in a conversation. Nurses, if the patient's in the hospital, nurses are the best form of communication with the patient. So when I go in rounds, the first thing I do is ask the nurses, how has the patient been? Not medically, but psychologically and everything else, how they've been. And in gynecology and breast cancer and prostate cancer, other forms of cancer, it really affects our sexuality. And a considerable discussion has to be made, usually by a third party, about the relationship between the partner and the patient and how that's going to affect the treatment and any toxicities of treatment. Now, this is a bugbear that I have. The National Film Board has a wonderful video called pinkribbon.com. And it has to do with conquering cancer. Cancer can be beaten. We can run, we can walk, we can bike, we can do everything to defeat cancer. Instead of saying, let's treat cancer as a chronic disease, we will win some games, but the most important thing is education, information, support, and research, of course, into affecting it, making patients live longer in a better type of environment, rather than conquer cancer in your lifetime that many institutions use now. And they use it, I know they use it, in order to get funds for research, because they're research-driven. And if we can benefit from that research, I think it'll be good down the line. But the media itself, and everybody jumps on the bandwagon, the corporate sections jump on it too, and it may not be directed in the best intentions unless you actually understand what they're trying to do. Cancer is plural. Most of it, we'll find in time, is genetically based. We know some of the breast cancers, the ovarian cancers, prostate cancer now. Some of it is genetically based. So you need to have some type of gene mutation, and together with the environment, that may change the cells from normal to abnormal and form a cancer process. I think more research is needed in this area, and this is the area that I think we're going to make our best gains, is in genetics, molecular biology, and the nature of viruses on cells as we go so. Now, this is my own attempt at a maze, and this is what I've been really interested in the last 10 years. When I was at Princess Margaret Hospital for 30 years, we had 4 hours in a clinic to see 7 new patients and 3 complicated patients. So can you imagine telling a patient who doesn't know much about cancer, you have about half an hour to 45 minutes to talk to them about their cancer, to sign the consent for the operation, and the way our healthcare system in Canada is now, you don't see them again until the day of the operation. And Canadians are strange because they never call you up and say, hey, I don't quite understand what you said. Can you repeat it or everything else? You can't do that. So in order to take them through this maze, they need to have the right information and support. So most patients require a combination of treatment to effect the cure. That is surgery, radiation therapy, chemotherapy, then supportive care, could be pain control, and all the way down. So you can imagine all the people that they encounter, both the physician and the team, to give them that information. And unfortunately, we have to deliver it in vertical worlds. So they get the wrong information sometimes, they don't hear the right information, and they get very confused about what to do. So what I thought is that what they need really is one point of contact, one person to assimilate all that information and support and give it through a virtual system. So we formed a company 9 years ago called CarePath, and that's what it does. It's actually a corporate benefit, an employee benefit, paid by the corporation. And what it does, it provides knowledge and skill of a nurse oncologist on the phone, backed up by oncologists who make sure that the information is right. And these are employees of patients, of companies, and all the way through, it's usually a year and a half, we provide on the phone that information support as they go through the formal system. What's that done, I think? It's make them understand when they talk to the physician or the surgeon or whatever it is about what is important and what is needed. And we're quite proud of what we've done. We cover over 700,000 lives at the present time. And I know that CARP now has it as a benefit for the CARP population that we have. And really, it's quite a simple concept, but it's that single point of person you can talk to and say, listen, I didn't quite understand what Dr. X said yesterday. Can you take me through, that part of it? And that is very, very important to have that. So, looking ahead, I think there's lots of things we can talk about looking ahead. Is recognition that cancer is not a one-time event, and it involves the entire patient, the family, and the healthcare team. I've been doing this for 40 years. When I entered, I was a radical surgeon, interested in cure, big operations, fancy toys in the OR, big cases, and then through a period of maturation and information and getting to know the patient and sitting down with the family, you get to know what's really important. It's not the big operations. It's helping them with their problems in a very compassionate way, an empathetic way, and telling them the truth. I know that whenever you try to fudge things with patients who have cancer, they know right away. They know right away. So the truth has to be delivered in a very information point of view and help them make the decision why they try to go on to the next phase of their life. I've got a few minutes left. So I'm going to talk to you about one research I'm getting into now. It's called end-of-life decision-making. And it's very interesting because patients who have cancer have relapsed fail treatment, and will eventually die. We're trying to get their impressions on what they want, what they want to do. And that's how we got the information that the family may not be the best to ask, because they carry their biases, to the table. The physicians may not be the best to ask, because then they're like decision making. The nurses don't know the patient so well. So what we're doing now, we're talking to the patient of who's your best friend? Who's an objective person who doesn't know anything about the disease but can talk to you about what you want? Not what your husband wants, not what your son and daughter want, but what you want in terms of how you want to go through the process. And that's where I think we're going to find out what really is important in cancer care delivery, besides the trying to cure the patient all the time. We got to focus more on genetics. I'm not against any run, as long as that money goes to the appropriate research. We have to focus on molecular biology in the lab. We got to focus more on vaccination. And now what we're talking about is personal medicine, is that running tests for that specific cancer in that specific person. And that's where I think we're really going to win the game in terms of research and how we're going. So I'm getting hoarse now and a bit sweaty, so I'm going to end, and I'm going to thank Moses and thank the audience for allowing me to say a few words today. I hope you understood what I said. I have no recollection now what I said, but I think honesty is the best policy in anything, and especially in medicine. Thanks very much.
Denny, thank you so much. You're a trooper.
Thank you.
I can see you're not feeling best. Yeah.